Part 1, The Discovery. The sun was setting behind the red rocks of Arizona Territory in 1887. 16-year-old Luna wiped the sweat from her forehead as she tended to the small vegetable garden behind the mission house. The tomatoes needed water again, and the beans were starting to wilt in the desert heat. Luna had been living at the mission for 3 years now, ever since cholera took her parents when she was just 13. Father Antonio had taken her in, giving her a place to stay in exchange for helping with the daily work. She cooked meals, cleaned the chapel, and grew vegetables to feed the few travelers who stopped by their remote outpost. Life wasn't easy, but it was safe. The mission sat in a valley between two mesas, far from the growing tensions between settlers and the Apache tribes. Father Antonio often reminded Luna how fortunate they were to live in such a peaceful place. As the evening air began to cool, Luna picked up her water bucket and headed toward the creek that ran behind the mission. The walk took about 10 minutes through scrub brush and mesquite trees. She had made this trip hundreds of times, but tonight something felt different. The usual sounds of the desert seemed muted. No coyotes howling in the distance, no owls calling from the rocks above. Even the insects seemed quieter than normal. Luna paused, listening carefully. That's when she heard it. A low, pained groan coming from somewhere in the thick brush ahead. Her first thought was that a wild animal might be trapped or injured. Mountain lions sometimes wandered down from the higher elevations, and a wounded cat could be extremely dangerous. But as she listened more carefully, the sound seemed almost human. Luna set down her bucket and crept closer to the source of the noise. She pushed aside some low-hanging mesquite branches and peered into the shadows. What she saw made her gasp and step backward. A young man lay crumpled against a large boulder, his dark hair matted with blood and dirt. His skin was bronze from the sun, and he wore the traditional clothing of an Apache warrior, buckskin pants and a loose shirt that was now torn and stained with blood. A bullet wound in his left shoulder had bled through the fabric, and a deep gash across his ribs looked like it came from a knife or saber. Just beyond him, Luna could see the body of a horse clearly dead for several hours. The ground around the area was churned up with hoof prints, not just from one horse but from many. Luna recognized the distinctive marks left by cavalry horses. Someone had been chasing this man, and they had caught up with him here. The warrior's eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. He was alive, but barely. Blood had pooled beneath him, and his face was pale despite his dark complexion. If he didn't get help soon, he would die. Luna knew she should run back to the mission immediately. She should tell Father Antonio what she had found and let him decide what to do. The territorial government had made it clear that helping Apache warriors was considered treason. Anyone caught aiding them could face prison or worse. But as she looked at the injured man, all she could see was someone who needed help. Her mother had been a nurse before settling in Arizona, and she had taught Luna basic medical skills. Luna could see that the shoulder wound, while serious, hadn't hit any major blood vessels. The cut on his side looked worse than it probably was. With proper care, this man could survive. The warrior stirred slightly and mumbled something in a language Luna didn't understand. His eyes fluttered open for just a moment, revealing dark brown irises that seemed to look right through her. Then they closed again, and he went still. Luna made her decision. She couldn't leave him here to die. She hurried back to get her water bucket, then returned to the wounded man. Carefully, she lifted his head and tried to give him small sips of water. Most of it ran down his chin, but some seemed to go down his throat. She used her apron to gently clean the blood from his face and neck. The bullet wound in his shoulder was the most serious injury. The bullet had gone clean through, which was good. She wouldn't have to try to remove it. But the wound needed to be cleaned and bandaged to prevent infection. The cut on his side was long but not very deep. It would heal if kept clean. Luna looked around the area, trying to figure out how to move him. He was tall and muscular, probably weighing much more than she did, but about 50 yards away she remembered seeing an old root cellar that had been abandoned years ago. It was hidden behind a cluster of large rocks and thick bushes. If she could somehow get him there, he would be safe from anyone searching the area. It took Luna nearly 2 hours to drag the unconscious warrior to the root cellar. She had to rest every few feet, and twice she thought he might be waking up. But finally she managed to get him inside the small underground space. The cellar was dusty and filled with spider webs, but it was dry and hidden. Luna used her apron to make a pillow for his head, then covered him with some old burlap sacks she found in the corner. The space was small enough that his body heat would keep him warm through the night. By now it was completely dark outside. Luna realized she had been gone for hours, and Father Antonio would be wondering where she was. She hurried back to the mission, trying to think of an explanation for her absence. "Luna, there you are," Father Antonio called as she approached the mission house. "I was beginning to worry. Did you have trouble at the creek?" "I'm sorry, Father," Luna replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I dropped the bucket in the water and had to wait for it to stop floating away. Then I got turned around in the dark coming back." The priest studied her face in the lamplight. "You look tired, child. And your dress is quite dirty. Are you feeling well?" "Just tired, Father. May I go to bed now?" "Of course. We'll rise early tomorrow for morning prayers." Luna nodded and hurried to her small room behind the kitchen. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the wounded warrior hidden in the root cellar. She had committed herself to helping him, but she had no idea what would come next. Would he survive the night? If he did wake up, would he trust her, or would he see her as an enemy? How long could she keep his presence secret from Father Antonio? And what would happen when he was strong enough to leave? These questions swirled in Luna's mind as she finally drifted off to sleep. She didn't know it yet, but her simple act of compassion would change both their lives forever. The wounded Apache warrior would soon become the most important person in her world, and together they would face challenges neither of them could imagine. But for now, all that mattered was that she had saved a life. Everything else would have to wait until tomorrow. Part 2. The healing Luna barely slept that first night. Every sound made her worry that someone had discovered the wounded warrior in the root cellar. When dawn finally came, she dressed quickly and hurried through her morning duties, desperate to check on him. Father Antonio noticed her distraction during morning prayers. "Luna, you seem troubled today. Is everything all right?" "I'm fine, Father. Just didn't sleep well," she replied, forcing a smile. After breakfast, Luna gathered supplies she thought she might need. She took clean rags from the laundry, a small knife for cutting bandages, and some salt for cleaning wounds. Her mother had taught her that salt water could prevent infection, even though it stung terribly. The hardest part was getting food without arousing suspicion. She made extra bread during lunch preparation, wrapping 2 loaves in cloth and hiding them under her apron. She also filled a small jar with water and tucked it into her dress pocket. When Father Antonio went to his afternoon rest, Luna slipped away to the root cellar. Her heart pounded as she approached the hidden entrance. What if the warrior had died during the night? What if he had left? What if he was awake and hostile? She pushed aside the brush that concealed the entrance and climbed down into the small underground space. The warrior was still there, lying exactly where she had left him. But his eyes were open, watching her with a mixture of wariness and confusion. "Don't be afraid," Luna whispered, though she wasn't sure if he could understand English. "I want to help you." The warrior tried to sit up but winced in pain and fell back down. He said something in Apache, his voice rough and weak. Luna caught one word that sounded like water. She knelt beside him and carefully lifted his head, holding the water jar to his lips. This time he was able to drink, taking small sips at first, then drinking more eagerly. When he had enough, he looked at her again and spoke a single word in accented English. "Why?" Luna understood what he was asking. Why was she helping him? Why risk her safety for a stranger, especially an Apache warrior? "Because you needed help," she said simply. "My mother taught me to help people who are hurt." The warrior studied her face for a long moment. Then he pointed to himself and said, "Nalnish." It took Luna a moment to realize he was telling her his name. "Nalnish," she repeated, trying to pronounce it correctly. He nodded slightly. She pointed to herself and said, "Luna." "Luna," he said. And somehow her name sounded different in his voice, softer and more musical. Over the next hour, Luna cleaned his wounds as gently as she could. The bullet hole in his shoulder was healing already, though it would leave a scar. The cut on his side was longer than she had first thought, but it wasn't deep enough to cause serious damage. Nalnish bore the pain silently, though she could see him gritting his teeth when she cleaned the wounds with salt water. When she finished bandaging him with strips of clean cloth, he looked at her with something that might have been respect. "Thank you," he said in English, the words careful and deliberate. Luna left him with bread and water, promising to return the next day. But as she walked back to the mission, she realized how difficult it would be to keep this secret. She needed medical supplies, more food, and clean bandages. How could she get these things without Father Antonio noticing? The second day was even more challenging. Nalnish was stronger but also more alert. He asked questions in broken English mixed with Apache words. Where was he? Who else knew about him? Was it safe here? Luna explained about the mission and Father Antonio. She told him how she had found him and why she decided to help. As she changed his bandages, she noticed that the wounds were healing faster than she had expected. Her mother had always said that young, strong people recovered quickly, and Nalnish was certainly both. Cavalry, he said suddenly, pointing toward his shoulder wound. They hunt my people. Take us to reservation. Luna had heard about the government's efforts to move all Apache tribes to reservations. She knew there had been fighting, but the mission was so isolated that they rarely heard details about the conflicts. Your people, she asked. Are they safe? Nalnish's expression darkened. Some safe, some not. I try to find them. He told her in his limited English about the raid on his band's camp. Soldiers had attacked at dawn, trying to capture everyone and force them to the reservation. Many escaped into the mountains, but families were separated in the chaos. Nalnish had been shot while helping his sister and her children get away. He had been riding for 2 days trying to lose the cavalry patrol that followed him, when his horse finally collapsed and died. Family, Luna said, pointing to him. You have family? Nalnish nodded. Sister, 2 children, mother and father. His face grew sad. Don't know where they are now. Luna felt her heart ache for him. She knew what it was like to lose family, though her loss came from disease, not war. The loneliness and fear were the same, though. On the 3rd day, Luna brought more food and fresh bandages. She also brought some herbs she had found growing wild near the creek. Plants her mother had taught her could help wounds heal faster and reduce fever. Nalnish was sitting up now, though he still moved carefully. He watched her prepare the herbal treatment with obvious interest. You know medicine, he observed, like Apache women. My mother taught me, Luna explained. She helped people who were sick or hurt. Apache mothers teach daughters too, Nalnish said. Medicine is women's wisdom. As Luna applied the herbal poultice to his wounds, Nalnish began to tell her about Apache healing traditions. His own mother was skilled with plants and roots. His sister could set broken bones and treat snake bites. Among his people, women were respected for their medical knowledge. In my world, Luna said, women are supposed to be quiet and do what men tell them. My mother was different. She said healing was more important than rules. Your mother was wise, Nalnish replied. You have her wisdom. By the 4th day, Nalnish was strong enough to sit up without pain. His shoulder was stiff, but the wound had closed cleanly. The cut on his side was healing well with no signs of infection. Luna was amazed at how quickly he was recovering, but his improved health brought new problems. He was restless, eager to leave and search for his family. He worried that soldiers might find their hiding place, and Luna was finding it harder to explain her long absences from the mission. That afternoon, Father Antonio asked her directly where she had been going every day. I've been gathering herbs by the creek, she said, which was partly true, and praying. Sometimes I need quiet time to think about my parents. The priest looked concerned. Luna, I know you still grieve for your mother and father, but spending so much time alone isn't healthy. Perhaps you should consider your future more practically. What do you mean, Father? You're 16 now, old enough to marry. I've been thinking that it might be time to find you a husband. A good Christian man who could provide for you properly. Luna's stomach dropped. Marriage was the last thing on her mind right now. I'm not ready for marriage, Father. I'm happy here helping at the mission. You can't stay here forever, child. This is no life for a young woman. That evening, as Luna lay in bed, she realized her situation was becoming impossible. Father Antonio was already suspicious of her behavior, and now he was talking about marriage. Meanwhile, Nalnish was growing stronger each day and would soon be ready to leave. The thought of him leaving filled her with an unexpected sadness. Over the past 4 days, she had come to look forward to their conversations. Despite the language barrier, she felt more understood by this Apache warrior than by anyone she had known since her parents died. But what future could there possibly be for them? They came from completely different worlds, worlds that were currently at war with each other. When Nalnish left to find his family, Luna would probably never see him again. Still, she knew she would continue helping him until he was ready to go. It was the right thing to do, regardless of what happened afterward. Her mother had always taught her to follow her conscience even when it was difficult. Little did Luna know that Nalnish was having similar thoughts about her. As he lay in the dark root cellar each night, he found himself thinking not just about finding his family, but about the brave young woman who had risked everything to save his life. Part 3. The bond forms by the 5th day. Nalnish was strong enough to stand and walk around the small root cellar. Luna found him examining the stone walls when she arrived with his daily supplies. He turned to greet her with something that was almost a smile. "Better today," he said, flexing his injured shoulder carefully. "You are good medicine, woman." Luna felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "You heal fast. You must be strong." "Apache learned to heal fast," Nalnish replied. "Must survive in hard places." As Luna checked his bandages, she noticed how different this felt from the first few days. The fear and uncertainty were gone, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship. She found herself curious about his life, his people, his world beyond the small space where she had been caring for him. "Tell me about your family," she said as she unwrapped the cloth around his ribs. "What are they like?" Nalnish's expression softened. "My sister Ayana has 2 children, boy and girl. Very smart, very brave. The boy is 8 summers, wants to be warrior like his uncle." He paused, looking sad. "Girl is only 5. She likes to sing and collect pretty rocks." "Ayana," Luna repeated. "That's a beautiful name. Means eternal flower in our language." She was born in spring when desert flowers bloomed everywhere. Nalnish touched the healing wound on his shoulder. "I was protecting them when soldiers came. Hope they made it to the mountains safely." Luna could hear the worry in his voice. "I'm sure they did. You said your sister is brave." "Yes, but children slow you down when running from cavalry. And my mother is getting old. Her legs hurt when she walks too much." As Luna applied fresh bandages, Nalnish began teaching her Apache words. He pointed to his hand and said, "Be gone." He touched his eyes and said, "Be na." When he said "Bedil" and pointed to his heart, Luna felt something flutter in her chest. "Your turn," he said. "Teach me more English words." Luna pointed to different objects around the cellar, teaching him words like stone, cloth, water, and bread. When she pointed to herself and said "friend," Nalnish repeated the word carefully. "Friend," he said slowly. "Luna is my friend." "Yes," she said, surprised by how much the simple statement meant to her. "Nalnish is my friend too." They spent the afternoon sharing stories. Luna told him about her parents, how her father had been a trader who traveled between settlements, and how her mother had learned nursing from an army doctor. She described the cholera outbreak that killed them both within a week, leaving her completely alone. "I understand," Nalnish said quietly. "I lost my father 2 years ago. Not sickness. Soldiers killed him during raid on different camp." "I'm so sorry," Luna whispered. "He was good man. Taught me to hunt, to track, to protect family. Said Apache warrior's job is to keep people safe, not to fight for fighting." Nalnish looked at his hands. Sometimes hard to remember that teaching when so much anger inside. Luna understood that feeling. After her parents died, she had been angry at everything. God, the disease, the unfairness of life. Only time and Father Antonio's kindness had helped heal that bitterness. "My mother used to say that anger is like poison," she said. "It hurts you more than the people you're angry at." "Apache have similar saying," Nalnish replied. "Anger is like fire. It can warm you or burn you depending on how you use it." Over the next few days, their conversations grew longer and deeper. Nalnish told her about Apache traditions, about how children learned by watching and doing rather than sitting in classrooms. He described ceremonies where the whole tribe would dance and sing for days, celebrating the changing seasons or asking for rain. Luna shared stories about mission life, about the travelers who sometimes stopped for food and shelter, about the books Father Antonio had taught her to read. She described Christmas celebrations and Easter services, trying to explain Christian beliefs to someone who had grown up with completely different spiritual traditions. "Apache believe Great Spirit lives in all things," Nalnish explained. "In rocks, trees, animals, sky, everything connected, everything sacred." "That's beautiful," Luna said. "Sometimes I think your beliefs make more sense than mine." Different beliefs, same heart, Nalnish replied. Good people in all tribes. Luna began looking forward to their daily meetings more than anything else in her life. After years of loneliness at the mission, she finally had someone who listened to her thoughts and shared his own. They talked about everything: childhood memories, dreams for the future, fears and hopes. But she also noticed that Nalnish was growing restless. His wounds were almost completely healed now, and he was eager to leave the confined space of the root cellar. Several times she found him standing at the entrance, looking out at the desert landscape with longing eyes. "You want to go?" she said one afternoon. It wasn't a question. "Must find my family," he replied. "But—" He hesitated, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "But don't want to leave you." Luna's heart skipped. "You don't? You saved my life. More than that, you gave me hope again. Before I found you, I thought only about revenge, about fighting soldiers. Now I remember there are good people in the world." "There are good people everywhere," Luna said softly. "In your world and mine. Maybe someday our worlds not have to be separate," Nalnish said. "Maybe someday Apache and white people live in peace." Luna wanted to believe that was possible, but she had heard enough stories to know how deep the conflicts ran. The government wanted all Apache on reservations. Many settlers feared and hated all native people, and some Apache warriors would never trust any white person again. "That would be wonderful," she said, "but it seems impossible now." "Many things seem impossible until they happen," Nalnish replied. Like Apache warrior and mission girl becoming friends. That evening, as Luna walked back to the mission, she realized how much she had changed over the past week. The lonely, grieving girl who had found Nalnish bleeding in the brush felt like a different person. She had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed, courage she never would have imagined. But she had also discovered something else, feelings she had never experienced before. When Nalnish looked at her with those dark, intelligent eyes, her stomach filled with butterflies. When he smiled at something she said, her heart raced. When he accidentally touched her hand while she was changing his bandages, she felt electricity shoot up her arm. Luna had never been interested in the idea of marriage, especially not to some stranger Father Antonio might choose for her. But the thought of spending her life with someone like Nalnish, someone who respected her intelligence, appreciated her strength and shared her compassionate nature, didn't seem frightening at all. Of course, such thoughts were completely impractical. Even if Nalnish felt the same way about her, which seemed unlikely, how could they possibly be together? She was a white girl living at a Christian mission. He was an Apache warrior whose people were at war with her people. But late at night, lying in her narrow bed, Luna allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to leave the mission and go with Nalnish when he left. To help him find his family, to learn Apache ways to build a life together despite all the obstacles. It was a foolish dream, she knew. But for the first time in years, Luna had something to dream about besides mere survival, and even if nothing came of it, she would always be grateful to Nalnish for showing her that she was capable of feeling such deep connection to another person. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, she was sure. But tonight she fell asleep thinking about the way Nalnish had looked at her when he said he didn't want to leave her behind. Therefore, the promise on the seventh night, everything changed. Luna had just finished bringing Nalnish his evening meal when they heard distant gunshots echoing across the valley. Both of them froze, listening to the sporadic firing that seemed to come from the direction of the Morrison Ranch, about 5 miles east of the mission. "Raiders," Nalnish said grimly, his whole body tensing. "Apache warriors attacking settlers." More shots rang out, followed by the sound of shouting voices carried on the night wind. Luna felt her stomach drop. Apache raids meant that the territorial militia would organize search parties within hours. Every canyon, every hiding place within 20 miles would be crawled by armed men looking for any trace of Apache presence. "You can't travel tonight," Luna said, though they both already knew it. "It's too dangerous," Nalnish nodded reluctantly. He had been planning to leave the next morning, finally strong enough to travel and find his scattered family. But now he was trapped in the root cellar for at least another day, maybe longer. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Members of Nalnish's tribe might have been involved in the attack that was now preventing his escape. Luna could see the conflict in his eyes, worry for his own safety mixed with concern about what his people might have done. "I hope no one was killed," Luna said quietly. Me too, Nalnish replied. But sometimes young warriors get angry, act without thinking, especially when families have been split apart, when children are hungry. As if to underscore his words, more gunshots echoed across the desert. Then everything went quiet except for the usual night sounds of coyotes and wind. Neither of them felt like sleeping. The cramped root cellar felt even smaller now that they both knew Nalnish would be staying longer. Luna had brought candles and matches, and in the flickering light, they sat facing each other on the dirt floor. "Tell me about Apache marriage," Luna said suddenly, then immediately felt her face burn with embarrassment. I was just curious about your customs." If Nalnish was surprised by the question, he didn't show it. "Apache marriage different from white people marriage," he said thoughtfully. "Man and woman choose each other. Families must agree, but young people decide for themselves." "What about the ceremony?" "Sometimes big ceremony with whole tribe, sometimes small ceremony with just families. Depends on what people want." Nalnish paused, studying Luna's face in the candlelight. "Most important part is the promises they make to each other." "What kind of promises?" "To protect each other. To share everything, food, shelter, happiness, sorrow. To raise children together with love and wisdom. To stay faithful through good times and hard times." Nalnish's voice grew softer. "Apache believe when two people truly join their lives, their spirits become connected forever." Luna felt her heart racing. "Forever?" "Apaches say that some spirits are meant to find each other no matter what obstacles stand in the way. When that happens, nothing can truly separate them, not even death." They sat in silence for a moment, both aware that the conversation had moved into dangerous territory. Luna could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken feelings that had been growing stronger each day. "Luna," Nalnish said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something." She looked up and found him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "When I was bleeding by that rock, ready to die, I thought my life was over. Not just because of wounds, but because I had lost hope, lost faith in good things." He reached out slowly and touched her hand. "Then you found me. You risked everything to help stranger enemy of your people." Luna's hand tingled where his fingers touched hers. "You're not my enemy. You showed me that good people exist in all tribes, all colors. You gave me back my faith in humanity." Nalnish paused, seeming to gather courage. "You gave me back my heart, Nalnish. I know it's impossible," he continued quickly. "I know we come from different worlds, that there are too many obstacles. But I have to tell you how I feel." Luna's pulse was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "How do you feel?" "I love you," he said simply. "I love your courage, your kindness, your strength. I love the way you see good in people. The way you put helping others before your own safety. I love talking with you, learning from you, sharing thoughts with you." Tears sprang to Luna's eyes. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've never felt this way about anyone before." Nalnish lifted her hand and pressed it to his chest over his heart. "In Apache tradition, when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt that can never be repaid. But you didn't just save my life, Luna. You saved my soul." Outside, they could hear horses in the distance, probably the militia heading toward the site of the attack. Dawn was still hours away, but already their world was becoming more dangerous. "What happens now?" Luna asked. "I don't know," Nalnish admitted. "I still have to find my family. You still have your life at the mission. But I want you to know something." He reached into a small leather pouch at his belt and pulled out a piece of turquoise, smooth and blue-green like a summer sky. It was roughly the size of a silver dollar with natural patterns that looked like clouds. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said, placing it in Luna's palm. "She gave it to my mother, who gave it to me before she sent me away from the camp to find help for our people." Apache believed turquoise brings protection and connects hearts across distance. Luna stared at the beautiful stone, feeling its smooth warmth in her hand. "I want you to have it," Nalnish continued. "Not as payment for helping me, but as promise. No matter what happens, no matter how far apart we are, I will find a way to come back to you. And if you'll have me, I want to make you my wife according to both Apache law and white law." Luna's eyes filled with tears again. "But how? It's impossible." Apache have saying, "What seems impossible under today's sky may be possible under tomorrow's sky." I don't know how we'll overcome all the obstacles, but I know I want to try. The question is, do you? Luna looked at the turquoise stone, then at Nalnish's earnest face. Everything logical told her this was a foolish dream. They barely knew each other. They came from warring peoples. There was no place in either world where they could be together safely, but her heart told her something different. In 1 week, this man had become more important to her than anything else in her life. The thought of never seeing him again was unbearable. If there was even the smallest chance they could build a life together, wasn't it worth trying? Yes, she said, closing her fingers around the turquoise. I want to try. Nalnish smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. Then this is my promise to you. I will find my family and make sure they are safe. Then I will find a place where we can be together, away from the conflicts between our peoples, and when I do, I will come back for you. How long? Luna asked. 1 full cycle of seasons, Nalnish said. By next summer, I will return for you. Can you wait that long? I'll wait, Luna promised. But what if Father Antonio tries to make me marry someone else? Then you must be strong and find a way to refuse. Tell him you need more time, that you're not ready. Do whatever you must do to wait for me. As dawn approached, they made their plans. Nalnish would leave the next night when the initial search parties had moved on. Luna would continue her life at the mission, but she would watch for signs that he was near. They agreed on signals, certain arrangements of rocks by the creek, specific patterns that would mean I am here or it is safe to meet. When the sun finally rose, painting the desert rocks gold and red, Luna felt like a completely different person than she had been just hours before. She was no longer an orphaned girl with an uncertain future. She was a woman in love, with something precious to hope for and work toward. The turquoise stone sat warm against her skin where she had hidden it beneath her dress. It felt like a piece of Nalnish's heart, promising that their impossible love might somehow find a way to become possible. As she walked back to the mission for morning prayers, Luna whispered a prayer of her own, not to the God Father Antonio served, but to whatever spirits governed love and hope in the dreams of young hearts against all odds. Part 5. The separation. The next evening, Luna's heart felt like it was being torn in two as she said goodbye to Nalnish. The militia had moved their search to the eastern canyons, giving him a window of opportunity to escape toward the north where his family might have fled. Remember, he said, holding both her hands as they stood at the entrance to the root cellar. 1 year. I will return by next summer's end. I'll be waiting, Luna promised, though her voice trembled with emotion. Nalnish touched the place where she had hidden the turquoise stone beneath her dress. Keep this close to your heart. When you look at it, remember that my heart is with you always. They kissed once softly, and then he disappeared into the darkness like a shadow. Luna stood there for a long time, staring at the empty desert, already missing him terribly. The days that followed were the hardest of Luna's life. She went through the motions of her daily routine, cooking, cleaning, tending the garden, helping with prayers, but her mind was always elsewhere. Every sound made her hope it might be a message from Nalnish. Every rider approaching the mission made her wonder if it brought news of Apache movements in the territory. Father Antonio noticed her distraction immediately. Luna, you seem very troubled lately. Are you feeling unwell? I'm fine, Father, she replied, though she knew she didn't sound convincing. Just tired. Perhaps you need more activity to occupy your mind. I've been thinking again about your future. You're 17 now, old enough to start a family of your own. Luna's stomach clenched. This was exactly what Nalnish had warned her about. I don't feel ready for marriage yet, Father. Readiness often comes with responsibility, child. I've received a letter from my cousin in Tucson. He knows a good Christian man, a shopkeeper who is looking for a wife. The man is 35, established in business, and could provide well for you. 35? Luna tried not to sound horrified. That seems quite old. Age brings stability, Father Antonio replied. Young men are often unreliable. This man, Diego Morales, is serious about marriage and faith. He could give you a comfortable life. Luna felt panic rising in her chest. Please, Father, I need more time to prepare myself. Could we wait until next summer? I promise I'll consider marriage then. The priest studied her face carefully. Next summer? That's nearly a year away. What possible preparation could take so long? I want to learn more about managing a household, about being a good wife. And I'd like to spend more time in prayer, making sure I'm spiritually ready for such an important step. Father Antonio seemed to consider this. I suppose there's wisdom in careful preparation. Very well. We'll revisit this discussion next summer. But Luna, you cannot remain here indefinitely. This mission is no place for a young woman to spend her entire life. That night, Luna lay in bed clutching the turquoise stone and thanking whatever spirits were listening for giving her the words to buy time. 1 year seemed both forever and not nearly long enough. The weeks passed slowly. Luna threw herself into learning everything she could about desert survival, reasoning that if she was going to make a life with Nalnish, she needed to understand his world better. She studied which plants were edible, which could be used for medicine, how to read weather signs in the sky. She also began paying more attention to Apache customs and beliefs. When traders passed through the mission, she listened carefully to their stories about different tribes. Some spoke of Apache bands that had found peaceful havens deep in the mountains, places where they lived traditional lives away from government interference. 2 months after Nalnish left, Luna was tending the garden when she noticed something strange on the horizon. Thin wisps of smoke were rising from the distant mountains in a pattern that didn't look like a wildfire. The smoke appeared in brief puffs, then disappeared, then appeared again in a different location. Her heart leaped. Nalnish had taught her about Apache smoke signals during their conversations in the root cellar. This pattern, 3 short puffs, a pause, then 2 longer columns, was one he had specifically described. It meant remember the promise. Luna had to grip the fence post to keep from crying out with joy. Nalnish was alive and he was keeping his word. Somehow, from dozens of miles away, he was sending her a message of love and hope. Over the following months, she spotted the smoke signals several more times. Sometimes they came from the north, sometimes from the east. She realized Nalnish was moving around the territory, probably searching for scattered members of his family. But each time he sent the signals, Luna's faith in their future grew stronger. She began preparing for the day when he would return. She gathered supplies that might be useful: extra blankets, tools, preserved food, medicine. She hid these things in an old trunk in her room, telling herself she was just being practical. More importantly, she began preparing herself mentally for the enormous step she was contemplating. Leaving the mission meant abandoning the only security she had known since her parents died. It meant turning her back on her own culture and embracing a completely different way of life. It meant facing dangers she could barely imagine. But every time she looked at the turquoise stone, she remembered how she felt when Nalnish looked at her with love. She remembered the respect he showed for her intelligence, the way he listened to her thoughts, the gentleness he displayed despite being a warrior. She remembered feeling for the first time in her life like she had found someone who truly understood her heart. As winter approached, the smoke signals stopped appearing. Luna told herself this was natural. Apache bands would be focusing on survival during the cold months, not on communication across long distances. But she couldn't help worrying. What if Nalnish had been captured? What if he had been killed? What if he had decided their dream was too impossible and given up? During the darkest moments, she would take out the turquoise stone and hold it up to the light, remembering his promise. 1 full cycle of seasons, he had said. There were still months to go before she needed to worry. Spring brought new challenges. Father Antonio received another letter from his cousin in Tucson, and the shopkeeper was growing impatient for an answer about marriage. The priest began pressing Luna harder about her future. Summer is approaching, he reminded her one afternoon. You promised to consider marriage seriously once you had more time to prepare. I remember, Father, Luna replied carefully. I've been praying about it regularly. And what do your prayers tell you? Luna chose her words carefully. They tell me to trust that God will show me the right path when the time comes. It wasn't exactly a lie, though she doubted Father Antonio would approve of which spirits she had actually been consulting in her prayers. As the days grew longer and warmer, Luna found herself scanning the horizons constantly. She had memorized every rock formation, every distant ridge, every possible route Nalnish might use to approach the mission. Her heart jumped at every unexpected sound, every shadow that might be a person moving in the distance. But weeks passed with no sign of him. Other than the scattered smoke signals months earlier, she had no proof that Nalnish was even still alive. Luna began to wonder if she had been fooling herself all along. Maybe their love story had been nothing more than a brief moment of connection between 2 lonely people. Maybe she should accept Father Antonio's practical advice and marry the shopkeeper in Tucson. Then, just as she was beginning to lose hope, Luna woke one morning to find 3 small stones arranged in a specific pattern by the creek. 2 smooth river rocks with a piece of turquoise between them. It was the signal Nalnish had taught her that meant, "I am near, wait for full moon." Luna's hands shook as she picked up the stones. The full moon was only 3 days away. After nearly a year of waiting, worrying, and hoping, Nalnish had finally returned for her. That evening, as she helped Father Antonio with evening prayers, Luna realized she was about to make the most important decision of her life. In 3 days, she would have to choose between the safe, predictable future the priest had planned for her and the uncertain but exciting life that Nalnish offered. Her hand went instinctively to the turquoise stone hidden beneath her dress. The choice had been made long ago in a root cellar by candlelight, when 2 young people from different worlds promised to find a way to be together against all odds. Now it was time to see if that promise could become reality. Part 6. The Test of Faith. The 3 days between finding the signal stones and the full moon were the longest of Luna's life. She went through her daily routine mechanically, her mind constantly focused on what was coming. Every conversation with Father Antonio felt like walking on thin ice, terrified that he might somehow sense the momentous change approaching. On the second day, her worst fears almost came true. "Luna," Father Antonio called as she was preparing lunch. "Please sit down. We need to talk." Her heart hammered as she took a seat at the small wooden table where they shared their meals. Had he discovered something? Had someone seen the signal stones by the creek? "I've been watching you carefully these past few days," the priest began, his weathered face serious. "You seem different, nervous, distracted, almost excited about something. Is there something you need to tell me?" Luna forced herself to meet his eyes. "I don't know what you mean, Father. Child, I've known you for 4 years. I can tell when something is troubling you." Father Antonio leaned forward. "Are you having second thoughts about the marriage proposal? Is that what's causing this restlessness?" Luna realized this might be her last chance to plant seeds that would explain her eventual disappearance. "I've been praying a lot lately," she said slowly, "asking God to show me His will for my life. And what do you believe He's telling you?" "I think," Luna paused, choosing her words carefully, "I think He might be calling me to a different path than the one we've discussed." Father Antonio's eyebrows rose. "What kind of different path?" "I'm not sure yet, but I feel like I'm supposed to help people. Maybe work with the sick or the poor. The marriage to the shopkeeper doesn't feel right to me." "Luna, these feelings might simply be nervousness about leaving the only home you've known. Many young women experience such doubts before marriage." "Maybe," Luna said. "But shouldn't I be certain before making such an important commitment? Wouldn't it be wrong to marry someone when I'm not sure it's God's will?" The priest considered this for a long moment. "You raise a valid point. Marriage is indeed a sacred commitment that shouldn't be entered into lightly." He sighed. "Perhaps I've been too eager to see you settled. Maybe we should wait a bit longer, allow you more time for prayer and reflection." Luna felt a surge of relief, though she tried not to show it. "Thank you, Father. That would mean a lot to me. However," Father Antonio continued, and Luna's relief evaporated, "I cannot allow you to remain here indefinitely without a clear plan for your future. If you don't wish to marry, perhaps we should explore other options. There's a convent in Santa Fe that takes in young women called to religious life." A convent. Luna had never considered that possibility, and it terrified her almost as much as the unwanted marriage. I would need time to pray about that too, Father." "Of course. But Luna, you must understand that this mission cannot be your permanent home. I'm getting older, and there may come a time when the church reassigns me elsewhere. You need to build a life that doesn't depend on staying here forever." That evening, as Luna lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she realized how precarious her situation really was. Even if Nalnish hadn't returned, her life at the mission would have ended soon anyway. Father Antonio was right. She couldn't stay here forever. The difference was that now she had chosen her own destiny, instead of having one chosen for her. The next day, the final day before the full moon, brought an unexpected complication. A group of travelers arrived at the mission just before sunset, a family heading west to California, looking for food and shelter for the night. Among them was a young man about Luna's age, clean-cut and polite, who helped his father tend their horses while his mother and sister helped Luna prepare extra food for dinner. During the meal, Luna noticed Father Antonio watching her interactions with the young man carefully. After the family had settled in the small guest quarters for the night, the priest approached her. "Thomas seems like a fine young man," he observed. "Well-mannered, hard-working, from a good Christian family." Luna felt her stomach drop. "Yes, Father. His father mentioned they're planning to start a ranch in California. A young man like that will need a wife to help build a new life in a new territory. Father, please." "I'm not suggesting anything immediate," Father Antonio said quickly, "but it occurs to me that you might benefit from meeting more young people before making any major decisions about your future. Perhaps God is putting opportunities in your path." Luna nodded and murmured something non-committal, but inside she was panicking. If Father Antonio got the idea that Thomas might be a suitable husband, he would probably encourage the family to stay longer. Maybe even suggest they take Luna with them to California. She had to get through one more night without arousing further suspicion. That night, Luna barely slept. She lay fully dressed under her blankets, listening to every sound outside her small window. The travelers' horses stirred occasionally in the makeshift corral Father Antonio had set up near the main building. Once she heard footsteps outside and held her breath, but it was just Thomas checking on the animals. The moon was nearly full, visible through her window like a silver beacon. Somewhere out in the desert, Nalnish was waiting for her. But with guests at the mission, how could she slip away without being noticed? Around midnight, Luna made her decision. She couldn't wait for a perfect opportunity that might never come. She had to trust that love would find a way. Moving as quietly as possible, she gathered the small bundle of supplies she had hidden in her trunk. Essential clothes, some food, her mother's medicine kit, the few pieces of jewelry her parents had left her. Everything had to fit in a single blanket that she could carry easily. She left a letter on her pillow addressed to Father Antonio. In it, she tried to explain her decision without revealing the whole truth. "Dear Father Antonio, by the time you read this, I will be gone. Please don't worry about me or try to find me. I have prayed long and hard about God's plan for my life, and I believe He is calling me to a different path than the one we discussed. I cannot marry a man I don't love, and I cannot take vows in a convent when my heart is elsewhere. I know this will hurt and disappoint you, and I'm sorry for that. You have been kind to me when I had nowhere else to go, and I will always be grateful. Please trust that I am following my conscience and my faith. Even if you don't understand my choices, I will be safe. And I hope that someday you will forgive me for leaving this way. With love and respect, Luna." It wasn't the complete truth, but it wasn't a lie either. She was following her conscience and her faith, just not the same faith Father Antonio practiced. Luna slipped out of her room and through the mission's main building like a ghost. The front door creaked slightly as she opened it, making her freeze and listen for any sounds of movement. But the travelers and Father Antonio continued sleeping peacefully. Once outside, she hurried toward the creek where she and Nalnish had agreed to meet. The desert was alive with night sounds, owls hooting, coyotes calling in the distance, the rustle of small animals in the brush. But Luna felt no fear. For the first time in nearly a year, she was moving toward something she wanted instead of being pushed toward something she dreaded. As she approached the creek, a figure stepped out from behind the large cottonwood tree near the water's edge. Even in the moonlight, she would have recognized Nalnish's tall, lean silhouette anywhere. "Luna," he said softly, and her name sounded like music in his voice. She ran to him, dropping her bundle as he swept her into his arms. For a moment, they just held each other, neither quite believing this moment had finally come. "You kept your promise," Luna whispered against his chest. "As did you," Nalnish replied, pulling back to look at her face in the moonlight. "Are you ready for this? Once we leave, there will be no going back." Luna looked over her shoulder at the mission where she had lived for 4 years. It had been a refuge when she needed one, but it had never truly been home. Home, she realized, wasn't a place, it was wherever Nalnish was. "I'm ready," she said firmly. "I've been ready since the day you left." Nalnish smiled and picked up her bundle. "Then come. I have much to show you, and we have a new life to begin together." As they walked away from the mission toward the waiting horses Luna could now see in the shadows, she touched the turquoise stone beneath her dress one more time. The long test of faith was over. The real adventure was just beginning. Part 7. The Return. They walked toward the horses waiting in the shadows. Nalnish began telling Luna what had happened during their year apart. His voice was low and urgent. They needed to put distance between themselves and the mission before dawn, but he also wanted her to understand what she was choosing. "I found my family 3 months after I left you," he said, as he helped her mount the smaller of 2 horses. "My mother and sister were in a hidden canyon far to the north, along with about 30 other people from our band." Luna settled into the saddle, grateful for the riding lessons her father had given her years ago. "Were they safe?" "Safe but struggling," Nalnish replied, mounting his own horse. "Winter was hard. Food was scarce. The children were thin and some of the elders were sick." They began riding north, moving carefully through the desert landscape by moonlight. Nalnish knew the terrain well, leading them along paths that would leave few tracks and avoid areas where cavalry patrols might be stationed. "I spent months hunting for them, bringing meat and supplies," he continued, "but I also spent time searching for something else, a place where we could build a different kind of life." "What do you mean?" "A place where Apache could live in peace, following our old ways but not at war with white settlers. Where someone like you could be accepted and safe." Nalnish glanced at her in the moonlight. "I wasn't sure such a place existed, but my Uncle Taza told me stories about a hidden valley deep in the mountains, where several Apache families had settled years ago." Luna felt her heart racing, though whether from excitement or fear she couldn't tell. "Did you find it?" "Yes," Nalnish said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "It's real, Luna. A beautiful valley with fresh water, good hunting, and natural defenses that make it almost impossible for outsiders to find. The people there have created their own little world, following Apache traditions but staying out of the conflicts." They rode in silence for a while, the horses picking their way carefully across rocky ground that would show no hoofprints. Luna tried to imagine what this hidden valley might be like, but her mind kept returning to the enormity of what she had just done. "Nalnish," she said finally, "what if your people don't accept me? What if they see me as an enemy?" He pulled his horse closer to hers so he could reach out and touch her hand. "The leader of that valley is my Uncle Taza, my father's brother. He's a wise man who judges people by their actions, not their skin color. When I told him about you, about how you saved my life and risked everything to help me, he said any woman with such courage and kindness would be welcome among our people. But surely some of them will have reasons to hate white people. After everything that's happened, some will," Nalnish admitted. "There are people in the valley who have lost family members to cavalry attacks, who have seen their children taken to government schools, who have every reason to distrust anyone with white skin. But there are also people who understand that not all white people are the same, just as not all Apache are the same." As they rode through the night, Nalnish told her more about the hidden valley and its people. It was led by a council of elders, both men and women, who made decisions together. Children learned traditional skills alongside reading and writing in both English and Apache. The community traded carefully with certain Mexican and American merchants who could be trusted to keep their location secret. "It's not a perfect place," Nalnish said honestly. "Life is still hard. People still get sick. Crops sometimes fail, winters are cold, but it's peaceful. Children can grow up without fear. Families can stay together." Luna found herself growing excited despite her nervousness. This sounded like the kind of life she had dreamed about during the long months of waiting. A community where she could use her healing skills, where she could be valued for who she was rather than what others expected her to be. "What about us?" she asked as they paused to rest the horses near a small stream. "Will we be able to marry there?" Nalnish dismounted and helped her down, then took her hands in his. "That depends on you. My Uncle Taza can perform an Apache marriage ceremony that would be recognized by our people, but it wouldn't be legal according to American law." Luna considered this. "I don't care about American law. If your people accept our marriage, that's enough for me." "Are you certain?" "Once we do this, there will be no going back to your old life. You would be Apache in the eyes of the world, with all the dangers that brings." Luna looked at Nalnish's face in the starlight, remembering how empty her life had felt during the months without him. "I'm certain. I want to be your wife according to Apache law. I want to learn your customs and be part of your community." Nalnish lifted her hands to his lips and kissed them gently. "Then that's what we'll do. But first we need to reach the valley safely. We still have 2 days of hard riding ahead, and we'll need to be very careful." They remounted and continued their journey as the first hint of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon. Luna felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. By now, Father Antonio would have discovered her letter and realized she was gone. He would probably assume she had left with the traveling family, not realizing she had disappeared into the desert with an Apache warrior. As the sun rose higher, they found shelter in a small cave hidden among a cluster of large boulders. They would rest during the heat of the day and continue traveling at night, when it was cooler and they were less likely to be spotted by patrols. Sitting in the cool shade of the cave, sharing water and dried meat from Nalnish's supplies, Luna felt the reality of her situation beginning to sink in. She had left behind everything familiar: her room at the mission, Father Antonio's protection, the predictable routine that had defined her life for 4 years. She was now completely dependent on a man she had known for only a week, traveling toward a place she had never seen, to live among people who might not accept her. But when Nalnish looked at her with those warm, intelligent eyes, when he spoke to her with respect and tenderness, when he described their future together with such hope and determination, Luna knew she had made the right choice. "Are you afraid?" he asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "Yes," Luna admitted. "But I'm more afraid of living without you than I am of whatever challenges we might face together." "Good," Nalnish said, pulling her close so she could rest against his shoulder. "Fear keeps you alert and careful, but don't let it overwhelm your courage. You've already shown more bravery than most warriors I know." As Luna drifted off to sleep in the safety of Nalnish's arms, she thought about the letter she had left for Father Antonio. She hoped he would understand someday that she hadn't rejected everything he had taught her about faith and love and doing what was right. She had simply found a different way to live those values. When they woke in the late afternoon, Nalnish taught Luna how to read the desert signs he used for navigation, the way certain plants grew near water sources, how the shape of rock formations indicated direction, which animal tracks showed safe paths through difficult terrain. "Apache children learn these things from the time they can walk," he explained. "If you're going to live among us, you need to understand how we see the world." Luna absorbed every lesson eagerly. She realized she was beginning a completely new education, learning skills that would be essential for survival in her new life. It was exciting and daunting at the same time. As they prepared to resume their journey on the second night, Nalnish grew more serious. "Tomorrow we'll reach the outer boundaries of the valley. Once we're there, everything will change. Are you ready for that?" Luna touched the turquoise stone one more time, drawing strength from its smooth warmth. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's go home." Part 8. The New Dawn On. The third morning, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and red, Luna got her first glimpse of the hidden valley that would become her new home. They had been climbing steadily through increasingly rugged terrain for hours, following paths that seemed to exist only in Nalnish's memory. "There," he said, pointing toward what looked like a solid wall of rock ahead of them. "Can you see it?" Luna strained her eyes but saw only granite cliffs and scrub brush. Then Nalnish guided her horse closer to the rock face, and suddenly she could make out a narrow opening, barely wide enough for 2 horses to pass through side by side. It was so cleverly hidden by natural formations that she never would have spotted it without his guidance. "The entrance," Nalnish explained. "My people call this place Hidden Water because of the springs deep in the valley. Only a few dozen outsiders have ever seen it." They dismounted and led their horses through the narrow passage. The rock walls rose high above them, blocking out most of the sky and creating a cool, shadowy corridor that twisted and turned for what felt like miles. Just when Luna began to worry they were lost in a maze, the passage opened up, and she gasped at what lay before them. The valley was even more beautiful than Nalnish had described. Green meadows stretched between groves of oak and pine trees, watered by several streams that sparkled in the morning sunlight. Gardens of corn, beans, and squash grew in neat rows near clusters of traditional Apache dwellings. Children played by the water's edge while women worked at various tasks and men tended horses in natural corrals. But what struck Luna most was the sense of peace that seemed to hang over everything. No one appeared to be watching nervously for enemies. Children laughed freely. People moved with the relaxed confidence of those who felt safe in their own land. "It's wonderful," Luna breathed. "And now it's your home too," Nalnish said, taking her hand. As they rode down into the valley, people began to notice their arrival. Word spread quickly, and by the time they reached the central area where the largest dwelling stood, a crowd had gathered. Luna felt dozens of pairs of eyes studying her with mixtures of curiosity, suspicion, and interest. An older man with silver-streaked hair and a face marked by years of wisdom and hardship stepped forward. Luna knew immediately that this must be Taza, Nalnish's uncle and the valley's leader. "Nephew," Taza said in English, clearly for Luna's benefit, "you have returned, and you have brought the white woman you told us about." "Yes, uncle," Nalnish replied, dismounting and helping Luna down from her horse. "This is Luna, who saved my life and chose to leave her people to be with us." Taza approached Luna slowly, his dark eyes studying her face intently. She forced herself to stand straight and meet his gaze, though her heart was pounding. "You are very young," he observed, "and very far from anything you have known. Why did you make this choice?" Luna took a deep breath, aware that her answer might determine her fate in this community. "Because I love your nephew, and because I believe good people should be able to live in peace regardless of what they look like or where they come from." A murmur went through the crowd. Some voices sounded approving, others skeptical. "Pretty words," said a woman's voice from the group, "but words are easy when you have never faced real hardship." Luna turned toward the speaker, a middle-aged woman with scars on her arms and a hard expression. "You're right," Luna said. "I've been fortunate in many ways, but I've also lost my parents, lived as an orphan, and given up everything familiar to come here. I know I have much to learn, and I hope you'll be patient with me while I do." The woman's expression softened slightly. "At least you're honest about your ignorance. That's more than most white people offer." Taza raised his hand for silence. "Luna, my nephew has told us how you risked your safety to heal his wounds and keep him hidden. Such actions speak louder than words. You are welcome to stay among us while we all learn whether this arrangement can work." "Thank you," Luna said, relief flooding through her. "However," Taza continued, "if you wish to become truly one of us through marriage to Nalnish, you must first prove that you can contribute to our community and live according to our ways. Are you willing to do this?" "Yes," Luna said without hesitation. "Then we will give you 1 month to show us who you are. If at the end of that time both you and we believe this is right, we will hold a marriage ceremony. If not, Nalnish will escort you safely to the nearest town where you can rejoin your own people." Luna nodded, understanding that she was essentially on trial. "That's fair." Over the following weeks, Luna threw herself into learning everything she could about Apache life in the valley. The women taught her how to prepare traditional foods, how to make clothing from buckskin, how to identify and gather medicinal plants that grew in the mountains. Her nursing skills, learned from her mother, proved especially valuable. When a child fell from a tree and broke his arm, Luna was able to set the bone properly. When an elderly woman developed a fever, Luna's knowledge of herbs helped bring down her temperature. When one of the men cut himself badly while working, Luna stitched the wound so skillfully that it healed without infection. Gradually, the initial suspicion faded. Children began following Luna around, fascinated by her pale skin and light hair. Women included her in their conversations and daily work. Men nodded respectfully when she passed. The biggest challenge came from a young warrior named Kaya, who had been interested in marrying Nalnish himself. She made no secret of her disapproval of Luna's presence. "Why should my people accept an outsider when one of our own women would make a better wife?" she demanded during a community gathering. "Because," replied an elderly woman named Ista, "marriage should be about love and choice, not just tribal politics." "If Nalnish wanted to marry you, Kaya," he would have asked. Instead, his heart chose differently. "His heart chose poorly," Kaya muttered. But even Kaya's hostility began to thaw after Luna helped deliver her sister's baby during a difficult birth. When complications arose that could have cost both mother and child their lives, Luna's medical knowledge and calm courage saved them both. "I still think you're foolish to leave your people for ours," Kaya told Luna afterward, "but I'm grateful for what you did today." As the month progressed, Luna found herself falling in love not just with Nalnish, but with the entire community. She loved the way decisions were made collectively, with everyone's voice heard. She loved how children were raised by the whole village, not just their parents. She loved the deep respect for the natural world that guided every aspect of daily life. When the month ended, Taza called another gathering. "Luna," he said formally, "you came to us as a stranger, but you have proven yourself to be a valuable member of our community. If you still wish to marry my nephew and commit your life to our people, we will welcome you with joy." I do wish it, Luna said, her voice strong and clear. More than anything. The marriage ceremony took place 3 days later as the sun rose over the valley walls. Luna wore a beautiful dress of white buckskin, decorated with intricate beadwork, created by the women of the community as their wedding gift to her. Around her neck hung a necklace made from the turquoise stone Nalnish had given her a year ago, now set in silver by the village's skilled craftsmen. As Taza spoke the ancient words that would bind them together, Luna looked into Nalnish's eyes and saw her entire future reflected there. They would face challenges, certainly. Life in the Hidden Valley wasn't always easy, and the outside world remained dangerous for people like them. But they would face everything together, supported by a community that had chosen to accept love over prejudice. When the ceremony ended, and they were declared husband and wife, the entire valley erupted in celebration. There was feasting, dancing, and singing that continued long into the night. Children ran freely among the adults, elders told stories by the firelight, and young couples danced to drums and flutes. As Luna and Nalnish slipped away from the celebration to begin their new life together, she thought about the girl she had been just over a year ago. Lonely, uncertain, trapped in a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. That girl could never have imagined the woman she had become or the extraordinary love she had found. "Are you happy?" Nalnish asked as they stood together outside their new home, looking up at the stars that seemed close enough to touch in the clear mountain air. "More than I ever dreamed possible," Luna replied. Their love story became legend in the Hidden Valley, told and retold to new generations as proof that understanding and acceptance could triumph over fear and hatred. Children who grew up hearing their story learned that love recognizes no boundaries of race or culture, that courage comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most important journeys begin with a simple act of kindness. Years later, when Luna had become one of the most respected healers in the valley, when she and Nalnish had raised children who moved easily between two worlds, when their hair had begun to show streaks of silver like Taza's, she would sometimes take out the turquoise stone and remember that first night when a wounded stranger had changed her life forever. The Hidden Valley remained peaceful, a sanctuary where different peoples learned to live together in harmony, and at its heart was the story of an orphan,